We're good to go then, is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome. Great. Gopal, it's an absolute honor to have you in the podcast, and I'm super thrilled to be speaking with you, especially with someone who has been part of the early stages of Sir's journey, right from the very early stages. So, and I'm pretty sure there's some amazing memories that you would have cherished as part of the journey, and I'm very keen to be hearing it out from you, and also for the fact that some of your friends have worked with the legend himself, as from being a fan and then being a colleague. And I'm sure there's a lot of stories that you will have to share, um, and then I've been very keen to talk to you, so that's why I did not lose out on any opportunity to follow up with you and ensure that this moment happens. So I apologize if I have been behind you to make it happen, because one of your very good friends, Nazif, told me that it's absolutely impossible to get you on the podcast. And I said, okay, I'll take this up as a challenge. And so, yes, just to give you a bit of background, I've been on this journey for the last 14 months now, I think. And it's been phenomenal. I'd never imagined that something like this would happen. And I'm just doing it out of pure love and respect for Sir. And there are no returns, there are no sponsors, no monetary benefits whatsoever. It's purely done out of love, and all the monetization buttons and everything have been turned off on YouTube and all the other platforms. So I want this journey to be cherished for a long time. And uh, in my view, this era called ARR era is never going to happen again, or should I rather say that this era is forever. So I want to ensure that I make the most of every minute that I exist in this era. So hence why that's, how should I say it, that's why that's the major motivation for me almost every day since the time I've been on this journey, doing my full-time job, and then right after my work I jump on to all the other things like podcast, community, etc. It has been keeping me on my toes, but not a single day I felt like, oh my god, what am I doing, I'm losing out time. No, not such thing, because I feel that it's more like a fulfilling experience for me, right from the time I record a podcast with a guest like yourself and all the other people who have come forward and supported me, and then till the time the podcast goes out and I start to receive feedback from the fans about the podcast and about the guest, and then the guests get to read the feedback, and that brings a smile on their faces. That's the moment I look for, and that makes me very happy. And especially in the last 13-14 months, it has been making me even more happier for the fact that this little journey is bringing a tiny smile on people's faces, especially with everything that's happening around us.
Yeah,
So I
I
wanted to
think
give you a bit of background, that's all.
no, wonderful. I mean, when I first heard of it, I was definitely intrigued. I think what the project that you're on, it is creating a bit of oral history that people in the future will look back on and tap into to, I think, get to a lot of intimate information on you. I'll come to this point you made on the ARR era. I think certainly AR Sir has left a mark where generations are going to come back to his music, to his life, and study it. And I think this is going to become one of the must read or must listen or must see, whatever, however one consumes it. I think source of information. I think it's
Thank
quite
you.
incredible that you managed to get so many people who've been closely associated with him, especially in a creative sense. And I think it's incredible. So thank you. I have a huge journey ahead of me just to get through everything that you've created. I'm probably 10% of the way through, and there is still so much to catch up on. So it's going to keep many of us busy for a long time.
Thank you.
So thank you for having me. I think well, one thing that certainly intrigued me was when I look at all the people who have participated so far, they're all associated with Sir in a very creative sense. They're either
Correct.
technicians, they're singers, other musicians, or even if they are not directly associated with him, they're still artists who either cover his music or are inspired by his music. And I was wondering if I would be a good fit because I have done none of those. I'm not a music technician. I'm not creative in a musical sense. And in fact, if there's one thing that bothers me about my being somewhere in Sir's universe, is that I cannot speak his language. And that's number one on my bucket list, which is to really learn music so I can truly appreciate the depth of his creations. Going back to the point you made that this era of ARR is going to endure. I think there will be others who will come and create their own eras, but the way it has personally touched many of us, I don't think there will be another one that can replace that. I think the the example that comes to mind is back in, I think this was in 2011, 2012, I'm forgetting the exact year,
Mm.
when Super Heavy was released.
Mm.
And there was a music release party in New York City. And I happened to be there. And so Sir invited me to come and join the release party. So me and another fan who happened to be also in New York, we went there. And it's a very sort of disco party kind of environment. Everything is dark, a lot of neon lights and loud music. And there's Mick Jagger, there's Damian Marley, and there are other people who I cannot recognize. And people are queuing up to get their attention, um, get autographs from them, take pictures with them. And I have no interest or no I'm just glued on to one person who's so that's so for me that's the kind of I think the level of personal impact that he has had, I think will be hard for anyone else to replace or even find another place, at least in my lifetime. And I think that's true for many other people around the world, you and others. I'm sure that we've all met and will continue to meet.
For sure. For sure. Amazing. Look, these are the kind of memories that I want to hear, because if you, let's put it this way, in our daily lives, I don't think we have the time or anyone else has the time to talk about or listen to stories like this. And we don't speak about it in our daily lives like, hey, I went to this party, I met Sir, this is what we spoke. Probably we may or may not have time, but this is I let me use this word. I take pride in creating this platform where this is an opportunity for you and I both to share memories like this, and which is going to be cherished. And if we are not going to be talking about it, others are not going to know. And these are the special memories that viewers and also people from people who probably have been in the same generation but haven't heard, it's a good opportunity for them to hear about it as well. So I'm extremely thrilled, and I have put in extensive research when I started this journey. I wanted to ensure that I tap into everyone who has been part of this amazing era called ARR, and I didn't want anyone to feel left out, because I wanted absolutely everyone. And then so I've done it single-handedly so far, and then I want to ensure that with the integrity with which I started this journey, I want to ensure that I wrap it up the same way. That's all. And I keep getting messages from time to time from people saying, please don't stop this journey. Let's see. I don't know. I only have one pair of hands, so let's see how far I can do.
Oh, absolutely. I think, like I said, it's books will be written, and I think books have remained the way in which we have passed on history and knowledge down generations for many thousands of years. But we live in the age of social media and video and audio, and so I think capturing history in this way and straight from the mouths of the people who
Correct.
experienced it, right? In a book, it's still one person paraphrasing and writing what they heard from someone. Here you have those people talking to you and narrating their journey and their experience firsthand. And I think that is definitely very memorable.
Thank you. Thank you so much once again. And so, Gopal, look, the thing is, I mean, before we jump into a lot of topics that I have in my mind, would love to know a bit about yourself, right from the early on, where your journey began and your exposure to what's called this ARR world. What was it like? When did it start? And what happened right after that point? I know too many things all at once,
No,
but you
yeah.
can take it easy.
No, sure. I think it's uh, I have probably been there for the entire almost now 30 years of his
Beautiful.
at least his movie journey, right? I think
Yeah.
before Roja, of course, he was already a musician, but not hadn't burst onto the scene, so to say.
Yeah.
And when he did in '92 with Roja, I actually missed it. I was just getting into my teens then. I was 12, 13, and we were not a big movie watching family, and so we never quite caught wind of the Roja wave, so to say.
Mm.
I grew up in India. I lived in Bangalore, and my grandparents lived in Chennai, and so that's where during the summer, all the cousins, everyone would congregate there for holidays. And
Mm.
so it so happened that in '93, I was in Chennai, and this was in '93 was still the very early days of cable TV in India, and Doordarshan was what everyone watched. And if you if you know the TV scene back then, Olium Olium was that weekly uh, show
True.
which would telecast all the latest songs,
True.
popular songs, right? It used to
Yeah.
air on Friday,
Yeah.
and so it happened that that was being screened in my grandparents' house, and I wasn't like sitting and watching it. We were just running around doing something, and then this bit of music caught my ears, and this is the guess which song it might have been.
Pudu Vellai Mari or Chinna Chinna
No,
Asai.
actually, no, it wasn't from Roja at all. And this was the outro from Netril Illada Matram from Pudhiya Mugam. So
Oh,
there's
wow.
outro at the very end that was playing, and that caught my attention. And so
Wow.
I stopped and started watching what was playing on the TV. And then my uncle, who was watching there, commented that this sounds so much like Roja. And I was like, what is Roja? Then he said, okay, oh, there was this movie that came out last year and it was a big hit, and the songs sound very much like that. And
Yeah.
I think we've certainly heard a lot of people claim that Sir's music can sound repetitive, but I think what it really was a testament to was for the new sonic template that he had created.
Mm.
Really crisp, bright sounds that
Mm.
were somewhat unknown in the world of Indian, at least movie music back then.
Mm.
And so that's when I first heard of Roja, and then I went back to Bangalore, and we we had a friend in the family who had come to visit us, and they had a cassette of Roja in the car, and we were going out somewhere with them, and they started playing it. That's when I heard the music of Roja first,
Wow.
and funnily, even then, it didn't arrest me like um, this is something has arrived, and it didn't
Yeah.
create that impression on me. I think where I really got into Sir's music was uh, back then. G. Venkateshwaran, GV of GV Films, who's Maniratnam brother.
Maniratnam's older brother, right?
He's I think the oldest. There was GV, G.
Right.
Srinivasan, and
Right.
then
Yeah.
G. Subramanian, who's Maniratnam,
Yeah.
and he was producing Tiruda Tiruda,
Mm.
and GV Films was, I think, the first enterprise in the world of cinema that had a IPO, or a public offering, in India. And
Wow.
my father had invested in it, and it so happened that as a publicity move, they gave a free cassette for all shareholders of Tiruda Tiruda. So we got a cassette of Tiruda Tiruda delivered to our home. And when I played that, that was when I was like, it blew my mind. I think that
Right.
that was the, so maybe 4 or 5 movies too late, I think. But that was the movie that really did it for me, and uh, kind
Right.
of pulled me into the world of Sir's music. But thankfully, it was still early enough. I didn't have too much to catch up on, and so I went back and um, uh, listened to Roja, Gentleman, then of course Pudhiya Mugam, Kadalan came quickly thereafter. So those initial set of movies,
Yeah.
and from then I became a very steadfast fan of Sir's, and I had to. And the way my mother would read all the Tamil weeklies,
Mm.
magazines, and so I would flip through the pages, and whenever I see a picture, or I'd learned to, since I grew up in Bangalore, so
Yeah.
I never studied. Though my mother tongue is Tamil, I never studied the language, so I didn't know how to read or write the language. And but I had grown to recognize the way the initials A and R. I would just scan through the magazines to see, okay, where is there a reference to? And then I would ask my mother to read, okay, what does it say here? And then I started to take note of, okay, what movie is coming. And then I would regularly go to the music stores in my neighborhood and look for, okay, what new releases have come, and started to become much more of a regular follower
Mm.
of the
Mm.
music. And
Not that I want to interrupt. Which music store did you go to? Because I am from Bangalore too, and everything that you're talking about, I am able to resonate, and it actually is bringing back all my childhood memories as well. Or the same thing, I am Brahmin Iyer Tamil, but I cannot read or write Tamil. And I used to tell my mom to read articles wherever I found that AR, and then I used to get her to read. And also, if there is a picture of Sir in any of that Kumudam magazine and all, I used to tell her, read this now itself, because she'll be on something else. But I'll tell, no, I saw this on the front page. Read this article first. Sorry, I interrupted, but I
no, no,
couldn't
no, not at
resist.
all. Yeah, so I lived in the south of Bangalore, so Jayanagar Shopping Complex,
Right, right.
Port Block. I don't know if you remember, HMV House used to
Oh
be there.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
haven't been that side, but I used to go to Music World and Planet M on Brigade Road and NG
Yeah,
Road.
they came
Brigade Road,
much later.
yes.
They came towards the mid to the late 90s. So this was
Correct,
in the
correct,
early 90s.
correct.
So,
And earlier to that, I used to go to this very tiny music store on Dispensary Road.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Very
I don't
tiny
know.
music store.
I'll tell you one more. I think at one point I'm getting ahead a little bit, but at one point there were a few of us who became so back then they would also particularly when it came to Hindi music, Indian Express used to have a weekly newspaper called Screen, which
Mm.
entirely focused only on cinema. So it was in a newspaper format,
Yeah.
but only focused on movie news. And they would have trade ads for, okay, music releasing on this date. And typically what would happen is they would ship the cassettes to the distributors, and then all the stores would go pick it in the afternoon, and then bring it to their stores. So when we found out that's how it works, we would go to the distributor in KR Market.
Oh wow, I love this.
We want 20 copies, and so we would just buy before it even hit the store. Um, so that's kind of how
Love
we
it.
would know, okay, what's coming.
Yeah.
And to the point of language, right? I think the
Mm.
one thing that really um, if there's one, forget the music, forget everything else, but if there is one thing that I would be eternally grateful to Sir for, is I learned to read and write my mother tongue, because I got I used to pester my mother so much. At one point she said, if you, this is so important to you, why don't you learn to read and write it yourself? And so I took it as a challenge to actually learn and do, without any formal training, but just by stringing together letters and trying to read and
Mhm.
write, I learned to read and write Tamil. I can still, I'm not as fluent or as good as someone who's formally studied and gone through the process. But
Yeah.
at least if I get lost somewhere in Tamil Nadu, I can read all the signs and find myself back to where I need to be. So for that, I think I have to completely credit sir, in terms of how he inspired you to learn a new skill. I think the next one that is kind of on my bucket list to apply that in a more musical sense, learn an instrument, and I'm trying to
Right.
do that along with my son, who's now learning music. So,
Beautiful.
but anyway, coming back to the early days. Uh, so this is how things went till about 94, 95. In 95, I particularly remember, again, I was back in Chennai, and that was the year that um, Muthu released, and that was the
Oh
first
yeah.
Rajnikant
Yeah.
A.R. Rahman combination.
Yeah.
And I knew it was because of this tracking releases, I knew it was going to release on a particular day. I remember, I think it was sometime in April and probably May. I don't remember the exact date now. And the I don't know if you know Adayar um, in Chennai. It's
Yeah.
again in the south of Chennai, a very
Yeah.
large residential neighborhood,
Yeah.
and there used to be a famous music store there. I go there around 10 a.m. in the morning because I'd inquired the previous day and they said we open the store around 11 a.m. And so I went there at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
and I was shocked to see a mile long line already standing to.
Oof.
That was incredible. I think the I think that was the first time where because this was before the age of the internet, and
Right.
I knew a few friends who had the same interest in his music like me, but that was the first time I saw the breadth of the people, like in a communal sense. That was the first time I got to see the amount of
Nice.
interest of course, the Rajni factor helped, but still the I think it ran across like cut across four roads, and the police had to be called, and that was the kind of
Wow.
that was the kind of interest in the music
And that
world.
too in 95.
95.
Yeah.
So that's that's how things were till 97, 98.
Yeah.
Obviously, by then Rangila had debuted, and he was much more prominent on the
Yeah.
national scene, and
Yeah.
there was more coverage in the English media covering
Yeah.
Bollywood and so on. And so I would go out, look for every newspaper, magazine, and collect. I still have all the clippings of all the interviews from
Oh,
back
you
then.
do?
I
Very
need
nice.
to digitize it someday, but it's still in the paper cut form, all filed at my home in Bangalore.
Nice.
So it became sort of from an interest in the music to an obsession, wanting to know. And then I started to record. Okay, what awards is he winning? All the different releases that are coming out, and and also starting to collect variants of. If I think some of the fans who might hear this after this comes out will I think know what I'm talking about. So the release of Bombay had 7 or 8 different inlay album art and different album art. I had to collect all of those. At one point, my parents thought I have gone crazy, and I think this the this guy's that from a future sense. But again, this is another point I want to come back to later in terms of what it means to be a fan,
Mm.
and so till about 97, 98, that was the manner in which the interest and following and listening to his music. It was a very individual experience, and
Mm.
then in 98 was when the internet it came to India in 95, but around 97, 98 was when we
True.
started to get access to it at work
Correct.
first. 97 was also when Vande Mataram released, and there
Mm.
was a lot of interest. And so I would go to these internet cafes and very slow dial-up internet, trying to see, okay, when is it releasing? What are they saying about it? And so on and so forth.
True.
Like Rediff, etc., were websites that had come up back then.
Yeah.
And slowly trawling the internet, that's when I found that there are fans in places like the US who had started to document a lot about his career and
Yeah.
his music. And I came across a couple of websites that had a lot of information. And it was quite the shock for me because till then I thought surely there is no bigger fan than me in the And when I went through those websites, I found that there are movies and releases I'd never even heard of. I'd never seen the like Uravan, Yodha. I'd never even heard of these films. Never seen the cassettes anywhere. And then started a whole new hunt to learn how do I get hold of this music. But the arrival of the internet, I think, was a force for the good in the sense that it really connected people across the world and um, brought together not just the ability to experience the music and share it with others who have the same interest, but also in being much more aware of everything that's going on out there. And that led me to on Jan 1st, 99, in fact, start. It used to be called e-circles back then, and this was a service that allowed you to create groups, and then people could join and obviously post and share information. And going back to those websites, so initially there used to be there used to be a guy named Rohit Batra who was actually had just finished school, his 12th grade or something, and he had started a website on his school. Um, in the US back then, the school gave you internet access, and you could
Yeah,
create a
yeah,
personal homepage. And on his homepage, he had created a site for AR,
right,
documenting all the releases and everything. And then he had gotten interest from another guy named Satish Subramanian,
right.
who then collaborated with Rohit, who went by Bunty, and the two of them really made it a comprehensive source for information on everything AR. And then I came along, and when I saw that website, I reached out to them, and then, um, but then Bunty had sort of moved on. He had kind of lost that initial, I would say, enthusiasm
Enthusiasm.
to do all
Yeah,
this, and he had moved on to the next stage of his life. So
yeah.
Satish and I took that information, and we launched this. Satish was then, I think, he was a web wizard. I think he graduated from IIT Chennai, and he was doing his postgrad in the US. And he registered a domain, rahmanonline.com, and took all that content and created a completely new website. And I said that we should make it interactive because the website otherwise is static. You go there, you can
Correct.
see all the movies, you can see the track list, but let's make this interactive. And so we started this section called Ask Gops, where people ask questions and then I would try to answer them. I still have some archives um, uh, of those articles saved. So I would typically write something about the music, and then people would have posted questions, and I would try to answer 4 or 5 questions. And the questions would be on the lines of this song, was it used in another movie? So going into the nitty gritties of where the music originated from, and in a very, I would say, in the sense of trying to understand the history and the making of the music, and less the artistic aspect of it. And that's only because I did not have that ability to appreciate the technical aspects of the music. So that carried on till I think 2001, 2002, and then I think Satish also decided to move on to the next stage in his life, and unfortunately, he abruptly shut down the website, and with
Oh,
it went all the content. Though I saved some of it, and some others have also
right.
archived some of the content and saved it. Um, in '99, I started this group on eCircles, which is which back then used to be one of the services available to create a group, and
Okay.
that led to people starting to join. And then there was a global group that would, okay, when is the next release? Is it coming? Just like you see now on social media, the same kind of fervor and passion in terms of trying to uh, wait, then listen,
Yeah.
then, oh no, I didn't like this at all, and then 3 days later, this is the best thing I've heard ever. So going through the motions of that experience. And that led us to build a very global network of fans. And E-circles got acquired by E-groups. E-groups got acquired by Yahoo, and it became
Mm.
Yahoo Groups, which
Mm.
it was till social media came along in
Mm.
around 2010, 2012. You
Mm.
had Facebook. Before Facebook, there was Orkut. But this
Oh
e-groups was the
yeah.
first where people created interest groups
Mm.
online.
Mm.
And this group grew to be at its peak just shy of about 100,000 members globally. This was
Oof.
before the age of social media. So
Wow.
uh, it was, I think, a reasonably large number of
For sure.
people
For sure.
on the group. And so people would, somebody would, Malaysia would get the release first. They would scan the album art, post it, and people would, when is it releasing in India? And so
Yeah.
and somebody from the US would post, "Oh, we got it with a different album art," and so immediately, "So, can you buy 5 copies and keep it for us? I want, I want a copy with that album art." And so
Mm.
that's how the fan community started to engage, and we started
Nice.
to meet in person. I think once we got
Oh
to know
yeah.
each other in different cities, we started to have meetups back in those days and get to know people.
So
And
is that how you met Nazif in Bangalore?
I'll get to how I met
Yeah.
Nazir.
Okay. Beautiful. Yeah.
That's coming. That's a still
Sorry,
little
I jumped
further.
the gun.
Yeah, funnily, Nazif and I went to the same engineering college in Bangalore, but many years
Are
apart.
we?
Are we? Yeah.
Ah. Okay.
And
Yes. We'll get to that. Yes.
so, so we started to meet, and typically we would inform each other if something is releasing, or say on a Friday. Typically, these releases would come out on a Friday or on a Thursday, and so 4 or 5 of us would get together, go to the distributor or the music store, and pick up the copies. And those guys by then had come to recognize us, and they would call us and tell, "Okay, this is coming. Do you want me to keep 10 copies for you?" So
Nice.
that's how the fan groups continue to grow. Um, in I think around 2003, 2004, sometime around that time frame. So some of the most active members back then, many have gone quiet or have disappeared over the years. But
Mm.
some of the members who have continued to still even today be very active in the
Mm-hmm.
ARR circuit. People like Prasad, Sirish, Amit Chandran,
Okay.
Dinesh, Ajit Mundra. There are lots of people who are still active today.
Ajit. Yes. Yeah. He's
But
actually
one
part
of
of the
the
community. Yes.
yeah, but one of the guys back then who two guys actually. One was this guy Karthik Srinivasan, who you may know as Milliblog, uh,
Mm.
the writer on Milliblog. He reviews music and
Right. Right.
is a famous social
Okay.
media personality in
Okay.
his own right. And so he and I, when still the internet was in its infancy, we were he came up with his website called ARR MP3, which
Okay.
where he would post music for others to listen to if you don't yet have access to the cassette, or CDs
Yeah.
were still unknown or too expensive. They
Correct.
would be imported either from London or Singapore, Malaysia, and it would cost 500, 600
True.
rupees, which most of us were still students, and that was an unaffordable
Mm.
sum for most. So it was still the age of cassettes, and uh, so he would trawl all kinds of sources like Napster and whatnot, and get these. And bandwidth used to be really terrible back in the days.
Yeah.
So he would actually split the MP3 files into 4 parts and upload it on his website. So, and that's how we listened to the music before we got the cassette in our hand
Yeah.
back then. And Karthik was one guy, and the other was Vijay Iyer,
Yeah.
who was based in Mumbai, and
Mm.
he was also a huge fan. And
Yes.
we got to know each other on the group.
Mm.
And sometime in the early 2000s, I don't remember the exact year, but possibly around 2003 or something, Vijay used to work for one of the businesses in the British Airways group,
Mm.
and he was on a flight to London.
Mm.
And this was when AR was traveling frequently to London for Bombay Dreams, and
Mm.
he happened to bump into AR on a flight. And that's and AR being AR, the nicest human being you can meet, he gave him his contact. Yeah, take it. So Vijay got his contact, and then he started keeping in touch with him over email. And then at some point, Vijay introduced me to AR as another fan, and as I think everyone knows, AR's email address is the worst kept secret in the world. Everybody knows it, and what's worse is AR being the person he is, he will reply to every email he gets. So I wrote to him, not expecting a response at all, and he responded saying, "Hey, nice to hear from you." But I was too starstruck to really like pester him, and I kept a distance. And we, I think that was till then. All of AR's concert performances were outside the country. It was obviously the first one was in Malaysia, then Dubai, then there was the US tour in 2000. And I started traveling on work to. I went both to Singapore and the US in 2000, 2001, 2, and I spent all my money going to every Indian store I could find and getting hold of the most obscure CDs and cassettes that I could to build out my collection, because there were many titles that had released in the early days in India. Like I said, Uravan, Yoda, they had gone out of stock and never came back. And these trips really helped me build out my collection. And there used to be a site in the US called Srimati's for music where you could buy CDs online. And I think many of us, we built out our collection by buying from that site because they had the rarest of rarest titles in stock. And I think to the credit of back then, I think Pyramid was the one that had the rights to the AR's biggest and best films in the 90s. And they released really good quality CDs around the world. And then imported in India, but couldn't afford, and then couldn't find it when you could afford. So, but fortunately, were able to find most of it in traveling around to these countries. And the first concert that AR did in India was, I think, in Chennai in 2004, I think. That one, unfortunately, I could not go. This was the one that Maniratnam directed, Rajiv Menon filmed it, and virtually every singer who sang the original song sang it on stage. So it was like a complete celebrity event. And they actually filmed it for a DVD release, which never happened. But I ended up missing it because I was in business school and there were some important exams coming up, and I couldn't make the trip to Chennai. And so that was a miss. And by then, this was almost 15, 16 years of following AR's music. Had never met him till then. And then in 2008, he announced a concert in Bangalore. And then the fans, we said, we've got to play a role in this. And we approached the organizer. So they had, I think when the first announcement came up, there was a press conference that there is going to be a concert in a month or something from when the announcement happened. And so we went and approached the organizer and said that we want to volunteer and help you make the concert a success. And so while they were a little reluctant and didn't want to, you get to see some of the not so nice things of what goes on behind the stage from the business aspect of concerts, although things have changed dramatically over the years. But back then, this was still very much a sort of a cottage industry where someone comes up with the idea and then they have to raise the finances. And often it's a very risky thing to do because it can quickly go south in terms of the financials of the venture. And so we approached the organizer and they said, okay, come on, you have to help us sell some tickets. And so we organized as a group of about 40 people, and we spent a month doing publicity. We would go hang out at all the music stores in the up and coming malls of Bangalore and publicize the concert and sell tickets. And that gave us access to being part of the crew at the venue during the concert. And so we ended up at the venue, and we there was a um, we had I had written to AR saying we'll be there, would love to meet you, and he had connected me to this. AR had a friend based in Canada, Ganesh, who used to travel with AR around the world for concerts back then, and so AR had connected me to him and said keep in touch with him, and he will make it happen. And so October, the concert was on October 8th, 2008.
Wow.
And so October 7th, the whole day we were at the venue trying to get everything organized. And someone came up with this brainchild of taking the album art of every release of AR's till then and making a montage of it in
Wow.
AR's sort of face outline. So
Nice.
we had a couple of there was a very creative fan named Bharat KV. He's based in Chennai, and there's another guy from Bangladesh, Rajiv Dey,
Right.
and the two of them put together that montage, and we printed it on something like 4 by 5 feet canvas, framed it, and we wanted to gift it to AR.
Yeah.
And and so on that day, we didn't. The organizers were obviously very cautious and wanted to ensure that his privacy and security were maintained,
Correct.
and so we were quite at arm's length from him. So it was no rushing to the airport and all of that. And then in the evening, we had the head Sridhar and others come up and start setting up the stage and the equipment on the stage. And so we met head Sridhar,
Yeah.
Shivamani, and all these musicians. And that itself, even if you had not met AR, we would have gone back happy, I think. And then finally, I think at 9 or 10 in the night, he walks out on stage, and
Oof.
like literally everyone is frozen looking at him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we watch the rehearsals. Goes on for about 2 hours, and then we try to signal to Ganesh that hey, we are here, would like to meet him. We don't hear back. So so I tell everyone else, keep your expectations low, may or may not happen, but don't lower your guard. We still have to get the concert through the next day. And we had an incredible team of people. I think everyone, many who were in that group that day, I still know today. And in a sense, they're people I would trust my lives with. I think
Beautiful.
that's where Nazif just came up that day and said he was not part of a group that had approached the sponsors. He had independently approached them, and they said there's another group already. Why don't you go and join them?
Right.
And back then, at least to me, Nazif was still a kid. He was still in college, and uh, so he came and he said, "Yeah, join us." And he started working as part of our team. So that was the
Right.
first day I met
Understand.
Nazif. And of course, the fact that he was in the same college meant that there were other degrees of
Yeah.
connection to him.
Yeah.
And then so the rehearsals happened. At the end, we didn't hear anything. So all the musicians put their instruments down, and we thought, okay, it was time to go. And then Ganesh called and said, "Sir wants to meet you."
Beautiful.
And then he walked down from the stage. We were all standing in the front rows and watching the rehearsals. He walked down from the stage, and he came up. And his sort of first comment was, "So Gopal, are you married?" And I was like, "No, I mean, not married." And I always wondered that time. I wondered why he asked that question. But then later, after in another discussion, I realized that he had a perception that fans were typically very young people who are impressionable in their young age. They get caught in this, oh, we love somebody, we like somebody. And then when they move on to the next stage of life, they forget all of that and move on. And I think so. Some of the people I mentioned to you, like Satish, etc.,
Yeah.
they had been in touch with AR when they were doing the website, etc. And then when they disappeared, I think he got the impression that okay, people when they get busier with other things in life, they drop all this and move on. So I think that's the first thing he said to me. So it's funny in a way, but also I think it speaks a little bit to the journey that fans go through
Yeah.
in their lives. And so he asked us to. There was like uh, 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 a side stage next to the main stage that was going to be set up for some additional speakers, etc. And so he asked us to gather there, and so all of us
Yeah.
went there. And obviously there was a little bit of chaos. And he said, "Talaivar சொல்றது கேளுங்க," means I was trying to calm everyone down. And he spent over an hour. There's a concert tomorrow. It's midnight. He spent over an hour speaking with everybody, posing for pictures
Oof.
with everyone. We gave him that gift, and he took it and again posed for pictures with that. Uh,
Wow.
and so firsthand we got to see what an incredibly nice
Do
human
you
being.
still have those pictures with
I do.
you?
Yeah,
If you can please share it.
I can.
I can use it in this. Yes.
I have those pictures. Yes,
Beautiful. Yes.
that was the first time we got to see firsthand
Very nice.
what kind of a person he is. And then of course he went back to the hotel so that he could refresh
Yeah.
and be ready for the next day.
Yeah.
And the next day again, we were there on the ground trying to get all the
Yeah.
seating in place, and some of us were like playing the role of ushers and things like that. So if while we were on the grounds, we had work to do. We couldn't just simply sit in the first row and watch the concert. But nobody was complaining because we had met him. Everyone was still hungover from the previous night, hungover from meeting him. That is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So everyone was in high spirits. And if you've if you've lived in Bangalore, and you have, of course, it never gets humid. But if it gets humid, it's going to rain. And
Yes.
that morning, it got really humid.
Oh
And
God.
so I told everyone, I hope it doesn't rain today. And this was in Palace Grounds, of course, the concert.
Yeah.
The, sorry, I think I misstated the date. It was actually 2005. So 8th
I was
October
gonna say.
2005 was the concert.
Yeah.
And so that evening, 6 o'clock, people start coming in. Concert is supposed to begin at 7, and the clouds are dark. It's not looking great. And then there's a delay because um, they're still unsure if things are ready on the stage. Things are
Mm.
getting ready, and then it starts pouring. It
Yeah.
comes down really hard, and for nearly an hour and a half, it rains. Most of the crowd goes back. There's obviously a lot of clamor saying, "Hey, we need our refunds," and so on and so forth. Some people decide to stay back. And then after an hour and a half, the rain stops. Sridhar and some others come back out on the stage to see the state of things. And everyone is like, "We don't know if the concert is going to happen, or maybe it will get rescheduled to the next day." And then AR comes out on stage and says, "We are going to perform. Let's get this all set up, and we are going to perform."
Beautiful.
And we so at by that point, since most of the crowd had left, there was a very small crowd, and whoever was left just gathered in front like it were a rock concert, and you were just standing there, and everyone forgot the seats, and everyone just gathered in front of the stage. I think we were expecting about 50,000 people to attend, and roughly maybe 7 to 8,000 people were there finally, which is still, I think, remarkable given the how much rain there was that day.
And may I add something there, Gopal, while you're there? I went to Australia in 1999 and towards the 1999 in November, December. And 2000 and this concert was in 2005.
Hmm.
And coincidentally, for that 1 or 2 weeks, I had come down to Bangalore for a vacation and I
Oh,
was there in that concert. And
oh,
I was one of those guys who was waiting in the rain. It was pouring like hell. I was waiting there and I witnessed the whole thing. And I don't even remember how I even managed to go back home after the concert, but it was pouring like hell. And I enjoyed that performance of Sir. And this rain just did not matter to me. And when I went back home, my parents were just wondering, what the hell have you done to yourself? I said, nothing. It's magic. Sorry, I had to add that, but I was very much there in that concert.
oh, that's wonderful. That is really wonderful. And I mean, as you know, he came out and then performed.
Yeah.
I think he still performed 30 of the 40 songs that were on the set list.
You did.
And I think some of for us, the magical moments was Meenakshi was then a new release, and he performed Chinnamma Chilakama, and
Yeah.
then Chan Chanana Chanana Chanan from
Water.
Water leaked
Water.
out.
Yeah.
Water had not released, but the song had leaked out on the internet. And Sukhwinder Singh and Sadhna Sargam performed that song on stage. Whoever was left, I think many of them didn't even know which song it was. We were like, wow, this is fantastic. So we had a blast listening to all these somewhat newer and at that time
Yeah.
lesser known songs. And I think still we were all completely drenched, but we'll never forget that night.
Correct.
It's a very, very special day, not just because it was the first time we met him, it was the first concert, but I think the rain added its own touch of making it even more special.
True. I agree. I agree. Amazing. Wow.
Yeah,
Look.
so that was kind of till when I first got to meet him in person. So that's sort of one stage of the journey leading up to getting to meet him for the first time. And after that, I got a bit more regular in corresponding with him, staying in touch with him.
Yeah.
He would occasionally call, and towards the end of the first decade of this century, as the social media started to come up, uh, we started to branch out. I think Orkut was one of the platforms back then. There was a fan named Vidur who had created a AR Rahman's group on it, and so the fan base continued to expand. And I started to take on a bit more of I would say, closer role, not formal in terms of I kind of convinced her that we need a website, we need an official source for uh, what is the what is the home of all your music. And
True.
this was still before the days of YouTube and
Yeah.
Twitter and Facebook, where artists could directly communicate with fans, right? So we wanted to create the authoritative source of all things AR, and he he connected me to what's his name? Starts with an S. Who was then the MD of Sony Music in India, because Sony had registered arrahman.com for the Vande Mataram microsite when it
Right. Right.
launched in '97, and then it was dormant for a long time.
Right.
And so Sony transferred that domain to Sir, and Sir said, "Okay, here it is. Take it and do do what you want." And then, um, so Vijay and I worked with a creative agency in Mumbai to create that website, and Sir had a vision for it. He wanted the 7 doors to heaven, and we tried. He even offered to create a theme for each of those doors, but obviously, with everything on his plate, some of those things never happened. But we had some very interesting plans for the website, including merchandise and special
Amazing.
access for fans and so on. I started to travel to Mumbai, and where AR had set up another studio, and he had started to record in
That's the
Mumbai.
Powai studio, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And by then, Vijay had started to work for AR formally and managed all of his affairs in Mumbai. I think he even lived in Chennai for a while, working with AR. And so I used to travel to Mumbai or Chennai occasionally when AR was there, for either we had to review the creatives for the website or something like that. And then I think the next sort of major event was I was getting married in 2008, and um, as you would do with anyone as you know that
Priorities change.
it's no, not priorities change, but it's disrespect to not invite anyone, and so I went and invited AR as well, that I'm getting married and would love to have you come. And so I went to Chennai, met him in his house, and gave him the invitation. And then 2 days before my wedding, he calls me and says, "I'm coming."
Oh, wow.
And so he came and attended my wedding, which was
Do you have the wedding pictures, obviously, right?
I do, yes, of course. And Nazif was there at the wedding as well. So was Vijay, and
Yeah.
I think that was the next major event in my meeting with him in person. In Mumbai, I mean, we would run into people like Ashutosh Gowarikar, who would we would be waiting in the lobby of the hotel, and they would walk in to meet with sir. And then in 2000 in 2008, when which is the year I got married, was when he also announced KM Music Conservatory.
Nice.
And so the some of the fans felt that we should contribute to support the conservatory,
Yeah.
and so we collected donations across the group, and then um, I traveled to Chennai to present him this one, and
Mm.
this happened to be, I think it happened to be on the on his birthday. He
Mm.
had uh, he had announced it uh, in 2008, and I think in 2009 was when it started to formally take off. And so on the 6th of January 2009, I went to give him our contribution,
Mm.
and it was his birthday, and there was a steady stream of who's who of the Chennai industry would come to wish him. And I was just standing in a corner and watching all those people again, trying to trying not to be the fan who's in front of everyone getting their autographs, but just quietly standing to the side and letting the others meet him. And um, that was, I think, another moment where he really embraced us fans, and he recorded a video thanking us, which we privately circulated in the group, of course. And so the I think the association between fans and him sort of starting to leverage the base of fans started to grow. By then, I had started to travel quite a bit to the US. In fact, in 2007, there was a concert tour in 2007,
Mm.
and I happened to be there. And the New York concert was the first stop on the tour,
Mm.
and went and met him the previous day. Actually, not even the previous day, maybe on the morning of the show, when even one round of rehearsals had happened. And I just casually commented to him, "You're performing in," and this was the first performance in New York after Silena Kadal had come out,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I think was a 2005 or 2006 release. And I just casually called, I looked at the set list and then casually told him, "You're performing in New York and you don't have New York Nagaram on your track list." And he, I, and he didn't react then. And then I I went back to I went backstage, and then when the show started, I was standing by one of the side doors and watching it, and then out of the blue he performed New York Nagaram.
Love it.
That
Love
was
it.
amazing. I think he's completely so open to feedback, and not in the mold of, I think you see a lot of creative personalities have this I know best, and I'll only
Mm.
do what I come up with, whereas he's much more open to
Mm.
input all around, not just from, I think, the creative people who work from him, but even someone like me who's actually nobody if you really think about it. I think that just further reinforced the person he is. And by then, I think we are nearing 2 decades of his music,
Mm.
and the conclusion that I got to was came for the music, but staying for the man. I think he's
Beautiful.
just in terms of his values, the person he is. I think we live in a world where we struggle to find role models, and I think he's the kind of person who is obviously extremely successful, but still very much tied to his roots. Very, 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 very humble. I think all 75 of the people who have been on your show before me have probably used that word, but I don't think you can use it enough to describe the person he is. And
True.
um, just it conveys a set of values, I think, that are inspiring. And I said earlier that sometimes there is, oftentimes, in fact, not even sometimes, there is a bit of a negative association with the word fan, that fans can be on a spectrum, and many tend to be on the fanatic spectrum of where you get so obsessed that you become intrusive, you become disruptive uh, to who you are a fan of. And I think one of the things that I have seen most AR fans be is they we have embraced what he embodies, and been trying to be more responsible. Meaning, yes, you are a fan, yes, you are interested in him, yes, you are obsessed with him, but not in a way where you lose sight of what your life is and just run behind him. Right? I think there is a level of responsibility we all have channeled into our personal lives,
Very true.
which is reinforced based on what he has himself done in terms of being hardworking, um, trying to be the best in whatever you do. But still, you can be very, very humble, very down to earth, very giving, huge philanthropist. And I think there is in that way a lot to learn and embrace from the person he is. I think if one thing we've all tried to be careful about is not to misuse that association and use it for a personal benefit um, that puts him in a sticky spot or is in any way embarrassing or uh, just troublesome for him. And I think that entire personality of fans, not to speak ill of other kinds of fans, but I think fans have always meant these really fanatical type of fans who um, give up everything else and are just behind their idol, whoever it is, to people who are much more trying to channel the best in what they do, and therefore furthering the cause of both him as a person and his music. I think is a beautiful aspect of the AR fan community.
Beautiful. Wow. I just felt like I could just hear you speak for hours, Gopal. This is amazing. I love
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I think there's lots of moments, right? He's, like I said, he's very open to meeting fans.
Yeah.
Have been at so many concerts. He'll always, again, on the one hand, some of us who have who know him more closely and therefore have a little more freedom to ask him, sir, can you do this? Can we do this? On the one hand, um, we should not become gatekeepers to others that, hey, if you have to go to him, you have to go through me. But on the other hand, he's the sort of guy who, if 100 people come, he'll meet all 100 and uh, speak with them, pose with them. So it's the virtually every concert that I've been at, and even folks like Vijay, etc., and now Nazif, to some extent, tries to get the fans in a way that it's they get to meet with Sir gets to meet them, but at the same time, it does not disturb him in his rehearsals, in everything that needs to happen for what the concert has to be. And I mean, speaking of concerts, I think one of the greatest fan success stories, of course, is Nazif, who um, really pursued the this vocation as a passion and got close to AR and has really transformed the way his concerts are now delivered. I think just the quality of sound, the quality of production is now significantly, as I'm sure you've seen firsthand,
Yes.
superior to sort of the first half of his career. And to see someone who was alongside you and is now alongside Sir doing this, I think is incredibly fulfilling for I think most of us who've known Nazif and seen him grow through the years.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yes, indeed. And I was very keen that Nazif should join in somewhere around this time during this podcast to say hello to you. And I did message him half an hour before the podcast started. I'm pretty sure he's still in his sleep and he probably hasn't seen it because
Oh,
being a
yeah.
night person and stuff like that. But he was very, very keen to pop in to say hello to you in this podcast.
Yeah, I
Wow.
think I can only say that I've been incredibly fortunate. As I was saying, I don't have anything to offer to Sir. I'm not a singer. I'm not a technician. I'm not a producer. I have had nothing to offer to him, but that has not stopped him from offering anything he can. Um, I
True.
think some of us know how much he has supported social causes that
Mm,
many of us are involved
mm,
in
mm,
without hesitation through the AR Rahman Foundation.
mm.
Now that I live in the US, typically whenever he's here on a tour, I go and join some of the concerts, or sometimes he'll just when he's in LA, and especially when he was coming here in the first half of the
Mm.
last decade. Suddenly, randomly, he would call and say, "Hey, I'm here. Do you want to come and meet me?" I drop everything and run to. That's how. Uh, I think even when 99 Songs was in production, Vishwesh
Correct.
was there, and we
Yeah.
met Vishwesh at his house in Los Angeles. Um, the when he performed at Berkeley not he didn't perform, but even he was awarded the
Yeah.
doctorate. He did perform a couple of songs at Berkeley in Boston. Um, Watched that firsthand, and also one of my probably very even amongst more diehard fans, lesser known, which I had the fortune of seeing being performed for the first time, Flying Lotus, which was his first full-fledged symphony that he composed, and the Seattle Symphony Orchestra performed it. So
Mm.
many of those moments, I think, are forever etched in memory, and are the kind of things that one would take to your grave. In fact, one other one, which I, in many ways, in some ways, regret keeping my word to Sir, which is on one of these random trips to LA, he was recording a song for Monkeys of Mumbai,
Right.
with the DreamWorks animated musical, which got shelved, and Leah Mitchell, who was a star in that Glee TV show on
Yeah.
I don't know which network it aired on, Fox or NBC. I'm
Yeah.
not entirely sure. So she recorded a song in his home studio,
Hmm.
and Kevin Lima, the director, was also there. And
Yeah.
uh, Sir said, "Totally fine for you to be there. Don't record any of this." And I didn't. And now I regret it because the song never came out. The movie was shot.
Wow. Wow. Amazing.
So yeah, and I mean,
Beautiful.
his. I think the thing about him is he has a very childlike quality in him even today in terms of his
Correct.
curiosity for new things, especially things related to technology. I think every time you go and see him, whatever is the latest product in the market, he will have it. Or every time he's traveling back, he'll be taking it with him from the US to India. I think one thing I remember is once when I had released, and I'd sent him a small clipping because we were in a we were in a restaurant and they were playing Lady-O, and my son started singing it, and there's this he was still a toddler then, and it has the line Lady-O, sexy Lady-O, right? And he just sang it. He didn't know what it was, of course, and I sent a recording of that to him, and his immediate reaction was, ஐயோ சங்கர்ட்ட சொல்லணும் இந்த மாதிரிலாம் லிரிக்ஸ் வைக்கக்கூடாது அப்படின்னு.
True.
So
That's what sir is. Yes.
so he's always coming at it from that
Yeah.
mindset. And
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah,
Beautiful.
like you said, one could be talking for hours and we would still have barely scratched the.
I don't want this podcast to end, Gopal, to be honest with you, because these are amazing moments to hear, and uh, I'm enjoying it thoroughly. As you can
Yeah,
see, I've been in ear to ear smile listening to all these stories. It's beautiful. I love it.
yeah. I mean, I'm trying to recollect so many things. I think one on the topic of fans uh, really channeling their their fandom for AR into things productive, right? There's this guy named Suresh Kumar.
Mm-hmm.
He now lives in the UK. He
Mm.
did an entire PhD on Sir's music and wrote a book. Um, so people have done incredible things
Mm.
inspired by his music.
Nice.
And that's, I think, the really big takeaway. Like I said, we all came for the music, but we are staying for the man. There's still the music, of
I
course.
love it. I love what you say.
Really,
Yes,
the
absolutely.
the human in him, which is really really
Yeah.
inspiring.
Yeah.
And even the first time he started to create symphonic versions of his music back in I think 2012, the London Symphony Orchestra performed
Mm.
uh, his music was written by what's his name? The I'm forgetting the London-based uh, conductor.
Matt Dunclear.
Matt
Ille.
Dunkley, yes, Matt Dunkley.
Ah,
So Matt Dunkley was the arranger and conductor,
yeah.
and Sir had some of us fly out to London to watch it firsthand, and
So
uh,
cool.
so yeah, he doesn't think twice. I think he's an incredible guy, really focused on what's the right thing to be done.
Mm.
Musically, never looks back, always continuing to explore new
Mm.
horizons.
Beautiful.
My the only thing I am hoping I will do before I call it a day on earth is um learn music and then go back to the last 3 decades, maybe 4 decades when it's all done to re-explore his music. I am envious of some of the fans like Swapnil, who's a musician in his own right,
Right.
Ajit Mundra. They when they talk about his music, talk about the ragas and all of the technicalities behind it, I feel like I'm having a emotional enjoyment of the music, but there are other layers of enjoyment that I'm unable to have because it requires a certain understanding, um, which again I think is all him inspiring one to go and
Mm.
explore new avenues and learn
Yeah.
new things.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. I don't know. You probably may have noticed that I spoke nothing in the entire podcast, and this is exactly what I wanted the podcast to be. And I just wanted to sit back and listen to the whole thing. And you've been just amazing, Gopal. I mean, I personally, I would love to keep this podcast even for. I don't know if you know, it's 1 hour 20 minutes of podcasting already, and
Oh, I did
uh,
not realize. I did not.
and
I think
these are just sorry.
I think sharing these memories, like you said, um, who knows? I may or may not write a book, but this is much more coming from the heart. It's much more
Yeah.
personal, and I think what you're creating in terms of this oral history is, in a way, I am lucky and fortunate to be a part of it and tell the stories of so many of us who have seen the life, music, and career of AR from a different dimension, from say how Shreya Ghoshal or Amit Trivedi would have. Obviously, they bring a very rich musical perspective to it, but I think this makes it complete in terms of looking at it from
True.
all
True.
the angles.
I feel very extremely lucky and fortunate to be sitting on this side to be able to hear out all these amazing memories and also
And
one thing that I
who knew that you were at that concert and you were
exactly, yeah. And, 2005, what 20 years later or something like that, we get to meet virtually and is
right.
incredible. And also something that I cannot resist asking you, and you and I both know, Sir has a very wicked sense of humor. And with all your interactions with him, I'm pretty sure there must be something that you would love to share or something that comes to your mind. I'm always inquisitive to hear out these little jokes that he cracks. I have cherished all the jokes he has cracked with my interactions with him, but I would love to know others as well.
He does have an incredible sense of humor. I think he's like I said, that example that I gave you
Yeah.
of
Are you married?
Are You Married? I'm trying to recollect other such moments, but sometimes you are so frozen in the moment when you're in his presence that it doesn't always stay with you after the moment
Yeah.
has passed. I think one of the things similar on similar lines when I was in like I said, I was in the concert in New York. We
Mm,
had to go from the so I had gone with a couple of fans who were in New York, and
mm,
um, they he sir asked, so why don't you all come with me to the venue? The venue was about a 20-minute drive from the hotel,
mm.
and because they had come in their car, they said they would drive and come on their own. So he said, Gopal, you come with me. And so we went in a stretch limo, which can sit
Beautiful.
20 people, and there's AR, there's me, and there's Ganesh. And sir looks at him and said, so now we've trapped this guy. Let's talk about how to get him married.
I love it. I love it. That is sir. That is sir. Exactly. Yeah. Beautiful. Amazing. And yeah, look, Gopal, I'm super thrilled. I cannot wait for this podcast to go out. And in fact, I'm very keen that this podcast should go out in the next couple of days. Every fan should hear this out. And then this is just amazing. The way you describe the whole thing in the chronological order, I love it. I love it.
And I think maybe what has changed in this decade.
Mm,
As social media took off in the early 2010s,
yeah.
we convinced him that he needs to be on Twitter and
Yeah.
Facebook. And initially, he was like, "Okay, you guys run it." And in a way, that was good because I was able to be Vijay and we would sort of take turns. And in social media, often you say something spontaneously, and sometimes it can backfire on you
I know.
because
Yeah.
uh, you know how
Mm,
the
mm,
things catch fire quickly.
mm.
And so, in a sense, we acted as a filter where he would send it to us, and we would look at it from all angles and say, "Okay, this looks fine. Let's put it out there." And so that's how we
Yeah.
and in fact we got like white glove treatment from Twitter and Facebook to give him the blue tick, make his profile official, and all that in the early days.
Nice.
But by then, he was a globally
Nice.
renowned uh, star, and I think over time he's gotten more comfortable. Now, of course, he has his own
Yes.
Instagram post, and he posts himself, and
Yes.
spends much more time looking at what people are saying,
Mm.
responding to them. I think and I think particularly in the last year, given that he's not had to travel as much, I think he's been even more active on social media.
Yeah.
But I think what has changed in terms of the fan community is one, the traditional groups have sort of dissipated.
Right.
And in the traditional groups, many were able to separate their personal lives from their
Mm.
online interests in a sense that you could sign up as whoever, and many did. They
Mm.
signed up with anonymous names, they participated, took what they wanted to.
Mm.
But I think in the world of Facebook, it has to be the real you, and not everyone necessarily wants to be part of formal groups. There's still many,
Mm.
but I think there are lots of pockets of small groups where you know people personally and you're comfortable with
Mm.
interacting with them. Also, there are closed universes like WhatsApp where there's no way to search. Okay, is there a group like this on WhatsApp? If you know somebody who's on a group, then you could get invited to it and you're on it. And
Yeah.
also, I think what has changed is the stream of posting has significantly increased because it's just a continuous stream. You keep typing as opposed to back then. You had to write an email, which felt like, okay, I have to consciously think what I'm going to say
Yeah.
and communicate with the group. What that has meant is that the world of fans has become very fragmented. We obviously interact more directly with Sir himself, and which I think is a great thing because
Mm.
uh, there are no filters. And for someone like him, particularly, who's always been very genuine in terms of the person he is,
Mm.
can directly share uh, news, new music, react to
Mm.
whatever people are saying. I think he listens to a lot of people doing covers or just voices,
Mm.
and discovering new things.
Mm.
So I think that dynamic has really changed in the way. But some of us, we continue to meet in person. I think there
Mm.
are. So there's Prasad is one of the fans here in the US, and
Mm.
he's a fantastic host. He'll get a group of us together every now and then in his house, and he has some of the best home gear I've seen for anyone. And we'll just spend 2 days playing everything and appreciating the music. And the
Mm.
other thing that I think I have to say is, I think AR's fans, for the most part, right? Obviously, in today's world, you'll find everyone, you'll find people of every type, but most of the fans who've been with him for over 2 decades, they are they are fans of AR, yes, but they are also fans of music first, which
Mm.
means you'll appreciate good music no matter where it comes from.
Mm.
It is something you see with Sir as well,
Mm.
in terms of how much he calls out. You bring him to any interview, unprompted, he'll refer to some other song he heard or some other album or some other
True.
artist and how good it was. And
Mm.
I think that attribute of being open,
Mm.
giving credit to people. Obviously, he's the guy who brought an entire set of technicians to the limelight, and
Mm.
today we know so many of them really well, and they're all public personalities in their own right. And
Mm.
this was something he started back in 92, 93, publishing credits for every musician
Yeah,
on,
he did.
on
Yeah, true. That is very true.
and I mean, there are, like I said, right, when I got on the internet the first time, I thought, uh, who can be who can be a bigger fan than me? And there are fans like um, there's a guy named Mohan Bhagavati.
Hmm.
He lives in Hyderabad,
Okay.
and he came like 10 years after me. By when even more of some of the earlier music had become rarer to find in a collectible form. You can
Yeah.
of course find it in a digital form, and he has managed to build the best collection of anyone I know, and continues to trawl the most obscure corners of the internet, finding anything and everything about Sir.
Amazing.
Somebody used his music in some ad in some country, which nobody has heard of, and so I think the the historian in him is another aspect of how people have channel things in a productive way to build an archive of information that will be available for future generations.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Amazing.
And
Beautiful.
I have to I mean, call out some of these fans who've been there
Please
for a
do.
number of years, right? Like
Please do.
Tiruchipur, Amit Chandran, Sirish. I'm going to probably miss a few names, and Dinesh, who again, incredibly nice human being.
Is
He
that
works
Dinesh Vaidya by any chance?
quite, yeah, yeah, works a lot with the Rahmania group in Pune, and he's
Okay.
been a big supporter of them. So lots of incredible people I've met, and now sort of personal friends. We all live wherever, but I think at least I can say that these are people I would trust my life with, and it's because all of them, I know all of them embody the values that AR Sir has taught us, and
Yeah.
I can be perfectly comfortable knowing that these are people I can fully trust, and will always do the right thing by each other.
Beautiful. I love it. Absolutely love it. Well, it has been a very uh, inspiring moment for me to be hearing out the whole thing as well, Gopal. I mean, it's purely amazing what you guys have been doing, and now you know why I wanted you on the podcast.
Thank you. And again, um, what you're doing is, I think, equally incredible. So many artists who worked with him over the years, all talking about their experience firsthand, knowing that they're not on a TV screen and not letting their guard down. I think that kind of coming from the heart stories
Yeah.
are incredibly rich, are, I think, incredibly valuable. And like I said, I'm 10% of the journey there, and it's going to take me many months to get through all the material that you've created and will continue to create. So I'll forever be trying to catch up.
For sure. And I'm actually very keen that I want to bring you back on the podcast again for 2.0, and
Maybe
also
we can
have.
do a group podcast of some sorts.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking, and maybe tap into the names that you mentioned, and then bring all those guys together, and just hear you speak, and just enjoy. That's all. And I'm very keen to have Nazif also in that group, just so that it will be even more amazing to hear out from him. And so, Gopal, thing is, I mean, 2 hours of podcast almost, and it's been amazing. I love it. But before I let you go, I would love to get you to share a message for Sir via this podcast. And he does keep a tab on the podcast, and he might get to watch this because Gopal is in it.
I mean, the only thing I can tell him is thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. We cannot. We have no way to teach you what to do. You have been a teacher. You've been bringing new things to us. I think scaling new horizons, and please continue to do that. And the one thing we can offer is we will continue to be on that journey with you, sir.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. So, before we close out, is there anything else that you would like to cover or talk about before we wrap up? Anything that I may not have asked and but you want to touch on?
Trying to remember anything that's on top of mind for you.
Nothing really. I mean, I think you summed it up really well, and I absolutely loved hearing out the entire journey. And there's probably one thing that comes to my mind
Mhm.
when Sir's mom passed away late last year.
Mhm.
Uh, I do remember you had put out a tweet saying you watched the concerts being right next to her in the backstage. So I would love to hear any of those moments that might come to your mind.
Yeah, I think Sir's mother obviously was the biggest influence on his
Mm,
life, and it's been incredible being by her side in many concerts. But before she became too ill to be mobile, she would
mm,
be at every concert.
mm.
She would travel the
Yeah.
world,
Yeah.
sit in front of the stage and watch every performance. And in a few of them, I've had the good fortune of being by his side because I think Sir would just entrust the care of his mother to people he trusted and were at the concert, and
Nice.
didn't have to be doing something backstage or on the side. And I managed to be in that spot a few times, and so I've been by her side many times. And I think the experience is surreal. When you're by her side, you can tell that this is a special person. She has an aura,
Mm,
um, and she was a woman of few words.
mm,
Uh, she would sit down and take in the concert, but you could see by the radiance on her face that there was a feeling of having accomplished something that she had set out on maybe 20 years ago when she had to make some decisions because of circumstances. And I think you could see that there was that sense of fulfillment and
mm.
very, very, very quiet, I would say humble, a sense of accomplishment in that maybe the decisions I made 20 years ago have turned out to be right. And even when one would visit Sir at home, um, amazing host. I happened to be at Sir's place a couple of times on Eid when they prepare biryani and serve it to everyone. And I'm vegetarian. When
Yeah.
when I go, Sir's mom would immediately send someone to say, "Go get vegetable biryani," and
Beautiful.
like so, very good host. And I think always welcoming people, even though till there was over the years, I think there's been better sort of delineation of what is personal space and what is studio space in Sir's
Yeah.
primary home in where Panchatan is located.
Mm,
But early on, people would be walking all around the place, and I think she would be a fantastic host, welcoming everyone, making sure they're taken care of, giving everyone tea every few hours. And I think that many of the studio staff today, you can see them follow that same principles that she established in terms of how the place was uh,
Nice.
managed, in terms of being a host to many artists and technicians who would come visiting, either to meet her or to record a song.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can, I guess, only take solace from the fact that she got to see some of the pinnacles that Sir
True.
achieved, and even though I can't say if that meant something to her or not, but from something like the Oscar stage,
Mm.
acknowledge her role in. I have my Sir said I have my mother, and I think that kind of an acknowledgement, she was there to see it, and I think that's the small thing that one can take solace from now that she's gone.
Nice. And since you touched on, sorry, I'm just recollecting things as you're describing. Since you touched on the Oscar, I remember you had hired an entire lounge bar or something in Bangalore. Am I right?
Yes, we had, and that's one of the other things that I finally ended up not going to, which is again,
Oh,
there are some incredible moments from. So we we wanted to get a space where where we could all get together as a group and watch the Oscar
Oscars.
ceremony.
Yeah.
And I think this was on a Monday morning, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think it
It was
was.
Sunday evening in the US, Monday morning in India.
Yeah.
And so the Nazif actually found the space where it was a lounge bar that was not going to be used in the morning. They already had the TV set up and everything. So
Mm.
we decided to hire it out, and some 30 of us were going to gather and
Mm.
watch the performance live. Unfortunately, I was in the middle of some important piece of work for which I had to travel to Delhi at short notice. And so I had to go on Saturday to be in Delhi, and I couldn't be with the group. And that will be one of my big regrets, because even today I look at the video and see the excitement on the face of those who were in the room. I was able to watch it live, but I was sitting by myself in a hotel room in Delhi, whereas 30 people were embracing each other, jumping with joy, nearly hitting the ceiling.
Wow.
And I think that's a moment that I missed out on, but I still go back and watch the video and really see the excitement on my our fellow
Beautiful.
fans' faces.
I love it. It'll be amazing if you can please share the video. I could include that in this podcast too.
Yeah, I think one or two of them are actually on YouTube,
Oh,
because
yeah.
one of the TV channels came towards the end to cover it, and
Okay.
there's a segment of it on YouTube. I'll look it up and send
Yeah,
it.
if you can, that'll be amazing. Great. Gopal, it's been super amazing to have you on this podcast. And I've been in all smiles listening to all these stories. And that is the whole point of having you in this journey. And yeah, I'm so glad you made it happen. And you gave me 2 hours of your personal time on a Sunday night. And I kept you awake pretty late.
No,
I'm really sorry.
not at all. I think, like I said again, thank you. I'm probably saying it for I've lost count, but I think what you're creating here is really incredible. And um, I think on behalf of the fans, I see this as another example of someone really channeling that interest in Sir into something that is going to last long, be of incredible value to the community at large.
Yeah.
And I think as fans, it's our responsibility to continue to do things that it can be in music, it can be outside of music, but
Mhm.
do things that Sir can be proud of and say, uh, I'm glad to have fans like this.
Beautiful. So very well summed up. Beautiful. I love it. Gopal, thank you so much once again for joining me in this journey. I don't
Thank you.
even want to say podcast, but in my journey.
Thank you for inviting me, Chandar. And I
Thank you,
guess
Gopal.
thank you, Nazif, for sparking the idea.
Yeah, indeed,
And
I have to thank him too. Yes, and it was your mention that came up in his podcast, and then I straight away felt I need Gopal in this journey.
yeah,
So
and I think finally, கொஞ்சம் புகழ் ஏஆர் சருக்கு எல்லா புகழும் இறைவனுக்கு.
yeah, love it, love it.